It's Jen Suzuki, and I'm in the industry. I meet some of the greatest leaders out there, dealer execs, dealers, GMs, and I'm bringing them in the studio to talk to me about what's making their business pop, what's accelerating their growth. I'm sharing my own personal strategies for your sales teams, so I'm ready to get after it. Are you? Welcome back, listeners. I have my friend, my colleague, Mike Lucente with us today. Now, he is in a Kia dealership in Alabama. This is a Greenway store. I have been friends with him for a long time. He's from the Northeast. He is a really great friend and guy. He always willing to help somebody, and I am really looking forward to this conversation because he's somebody that I have watched bring a store from average to above average. I mean, literally hitting it out of the ballpark, not only in a huge organization like Greenway, but state, regional numbers. I'll let him share his accolades. But here's the thing. I wanted Mike to come on and talk about his leadership and how he engages with his team to help train his team members to success. And a lot of people discount training. A lot of managers don't know how to train. And so it doesn't happen. And sometimes we just kick people to the curb because they just aren't cutting it. And I always say, well, what do we do to help them out? And so welcome, my friend.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm excited to be here. I appreciate the invitation.
Well, we go back a long ways, and I have watched your store rise to the top. And I have to believe that some of the reasons why you achieve the numbers that you achieve, and please feel free to blow yourself up because I just love winners. But, I have to believe that part of the success is the way that you nurture team members' success.
Yeah, well, we've been very fortunate. For 12 years, we've been the largest volume Kia dealership in the state of Alabama. We've won the President's Club Award 4 times. We won it in 2023. Last year, we were not only the top volume Kia dealership in Alabama, but Tennessee as well. And we were also one of the top 100 Kia dealerships. So we're proud of what we've done, but you're absolutely right. It takes a lot of commitment and work to get to that particular point because the business has changed and morphed, right? We went through conventional sales, then we hit COVID, everybody got fat and happy, and we were counting all our money, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, that's right, cars started showing up, and now it was back to pre that. Yeah. But there were so many young salespeople that didn't understand, millennial folks that got in the business and thought, hey, I'm making $100,000 a year, so I'm great. I got this thing licked, and then kind of got punched in the face a little bit when it changed.
Yeah. So with that being said, there is a lot of young team members in the dealerships, many that entered during COVID, great times. And a lot of people will say to me, our salespeople don't know how to sell. And so I don't know if it's a generational thing or it's just that even the managers have let off the gas. Now, almost every store I go into now, the owner, operator, GM will say, our managers are as lazy as the salespeople. They don't know the process, Jen. We need to remind them of the process. So how do you view onboarding or training in your dealership, particularly for your sales team and your sales BDC?
Well, when we onboard somebody into the organization, you're absolutely right. The training and the consistency of training and the value you bring to the training is important. So when we bring somebody in, we've got a whole training video set up where they go through, because we're very process driven, very word tracky driven in how we deliver our sales presentation. And so at the end of the day, we put them through video training. We made up training books that break everything down from start to finish, every step, what you're supposed to do during those steps. And then we train them one-on-one as well in order to give them the actual kind of nuts and bolts and break it down for them. And it's the same with the BDC. We still have the books we got from you years ago that break it all down. And we try and just give everybody the focus and the structure so that when they step into it, they've got a basis for how they need to move forward.
Okay, so everybody on boards with a plan and they have expectations for what that sales process and the steps to the sale look like, and they go through some video training. Okay, so now video training's up, and we know, look, I mean, you can only absorb so much,
Right.
and so it's going to require a little bit of a hands-on approach. One of the things that I always admired about you is that you were never like letting off the gas and ready to jump in on a customer phone call, take a TO, and I think sometimes, particularly in 24, as we work with the teams that we do in trying to rebuild, if you will, a sales department, a sales process, reinforce maybe what you already established, and it would require a little bit more than just a video. What do you guys do? What are some of the keys to success in just maintaining the training when they first come on? And look, you have veterans there. They're not doing the video training. They're way past that. But you still have to keep the momentum. You still have to keep consistency in your entire organization. Like, training's for everybody. So how do you do it?
Well, you got to adopt a philosophy that the speed of the leader is the speed of the team, right?
Woo!
If
Okay.
if your leaders are lazy, your team's going to be lazy, right?
Facts,
And
facts,
so
facts.
you've got to keep energy, you've got to keep enthusiasm, you've got to get interactive because the business has changed. And
Yes.
so where it used to be back in my day, I mean, I've been in this business 30 years now. Back in my day, sales managers never got off the desk. It was salespeople, but it's a lot more management driven. They need to see you and what you're doing with a customer and
Mm-hmm.
how you're interacting and be able to absorb it by seeing you do it, not just by trying to load their lips and send them back because it's
Right.
very different now.
Mm-hmm.
Transitionally, you've got to have a team concept, right? Because you've got different departments. You've got your BDC, you've got your sales department. In our dealership, they're two separate departments, but
Mm-hmm.
they're so interdependent upon each other. We
Mm.
have our BDC staff in our sales meetings and interact
Oh.
in those meetings,
Mm-hmm.
so that everybody's on the same page and everybody understands the process of the BDC to sales handoff and what we're going to do. It's just a matter of continually training and understanding that the culture is different, but we can't let the culture define us. We
Mm.
have to adapt to the culture, but we need to continue to be proactive in what we do.
One thing that you mentioned, I want to target and bring it back because I do think that managers will be inspired to hear this. Take me through some more details. I mean, I just did my video training. Okay. And now you're like, okay, they need to see you. That's tell me more about what that looks like. And me, I'm always focused on phone calls. I think it's the low hanging fruit. A lot of calls now. I mean, the influx of sales calls as of lately is very, very high, and yet there's a lack of sales process. So when I see a lack of sales process on the showroom floor, I'm always like, well, let's see what that phone process looks like.
Right.
And with that being said, I've watched you get in there on these phone calls. I think managers should be taking TOs on these sales calls. It should be a big focal point for how we train and how we hold people accountable. But tell me more details as to how you keep the training consistent with more hands-on. What do these activities look like?
Well, first and foremost, you've got to understand our philosophy with our BDC staff, with our sales staff, is the minute you feel like you're not making forward progress,
Mm-hmm.
you've got to get a manager involved. Okay.
Yeah.
And when we step in, like our BDC, we run off of something called management live turns, which is the same thing as taking a turn on a showroom floor,
Mm-hmm.
because those customers coming in over the phones, right? Particularly in where the car business has evolved to, right? Those customers coming in over the phones
Yeah.
are equally as important as the customers that are walking through the showroom floor, because at the end of the day, when they call you up and they've got you on the phone, they're calling other dealerships,
Mm-hmm.
and you're trying to get them low funnel, but what
That's
they're
it.
trying to do is eliminate you, right? From
Right.
That's right, from the fold of, I heard that from somebody,
Yeah.
from the fold on what you're trying to do. So if they've got questions that get more complex, then they've got to get them to a manager, either their BDC manager or to the desk, right?
Mhm.
Bring it
Mhm.
to me. And then when those calls happen, you need to have the person stay there and participate. It can't be, oh yeah, okay, hey, thanks, yeah, yeah, go on, I'll take care of this. It needs to be, hey, stay with me, hear what's
Okay.
going on,
Mhm.
so that they can grasp it more. Same thing with the sales staff. When we're doing follow-up calls, when
Mhm.
we're turning around and doing KPI calls, they need to be sitting with a manager. We like to say, I do one, you do one. So they sit there, they listen to their manager do a call, then they do a call. So it becomes a back and forth interaction so they can hear and learn and become more comfortable and be able to start doing it on their own.
I'm literally speechless because, I think back in the day, this was like a very popular way to train people. I think that over COVID, a lot of this got lost, and I'm thrilled to hear you say that. I like that you do one, I do one. I think that when people see their manager, and especially somebody experienced like you, 30 plus years in the business, you know all the closes. You know every customer question. You know all of the ways to navigate. And who better than you than to show the team how it's done? At the same time, enforce expectations and support your team members' success. I don't know why we wouldn't want to spend time nurturing our front line when we don't really want to onboard somebody new if we don't have to. I want to nurture this person to be a top performer. I want everybody to be a top performer. So getting involved in their phone calls, making calls with them, hello, kudos to you. Be back phone calls, follow up phone calls. Sometimes people say this to me all the time. They're like, oh, they want me to call my sold customers. What am I going to say to them? And I'm like, let me clear my throat. Okay. We got a lot of things we can say to these people. Are you kidding me? But see, it just ties back to, well, my manager didn't show me how to do it.
Right? Right. No, you're absolutely right. And you got to understand there's more challenges now for managers than there used to be because there's so many younger folks, millennials, Gen Zs that are in the car business, right? And
Yes.
I spent a lot of time because I had to come to terms with this, right? Because,
Okay.
in effect, at first you're like, oh my God, they're so entitled. Oh my God, they're so self-centered. Oh, but then when you realize, that I did a lot of studying and listening, they grew up differently. They grew up in a world of instant gratification, right?
Yeah.
When I wanted to go to the movies and I was a kid and it was a summer blockbuster, you stood in line at the movies for 2.5 hours to get a seat. Now you just get
What?
on your computer, pick your seat, go
That's
to
true.
go to the movie, right?
Hmm.
And it's very different. And when you're dealing with these younger folks, just the fact of the matter, right?
Okay.
They grew up, and not saying wrong or right, in the
Yeah.
area
Yeah.
of participation trophies and different things. And so dealing with stress and dealing with confrontation, right, to you or me or a lot of people that have been in the business for a while, you understand that at a certain point in time during the course of a sale, when you're negotiating numbers, there's got to be some level of uncomfortability.
Hmm.
But to these folks, they don't understand that because confrontation is something they avoid at all costs.
Hmm.
So you got to be able to understand where they're coming from. And you're right. It's almost like a nurturing thing where you have to help them because they went from, everything's good and mom and dad, now they're in the business world. And all of a sudden, all those things that they grew up with, now they get hit in the face. And now what I want doesn't matter as much. And I can't have it my way. And we're going through a whole different culture. So you've got to step in and show them, hey,
Mm.
you know what? I've got your back. They've got to be able to trust you. They've got to
Mm.
do it. And they've got to know when they make a mistake, right? Because, it's so easy to be like, oh my God, why did you do that?
Right.
But you can't. You've got to. It's a lot more being a coach now than being a manager.
Oh, hey now. I, I really like that. It's more about being a coach than it is a manager. And it's not just about showing them the process, but I can tell that you've spent a lot of time thinking about these characteristics and the change in our personnel and how we navigate doing our best for them in
Right.
a way that feels right for them. Because I think you do have to, if there's one thing we've all learned in business over the last few years, you better know how to adapt.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly.
You can't keep throwing up the roadblocks and saying, no, you're going to do it my way. No, you, and I think that's actually a conflict right there, which I could be guilty of myself. We know it works this way. We've been doing it this
Yeah.
way for 30 years. And then you want them to conform. And I think that this is when people blow out because they feel like it's misunderstood.
Yeah. And you're right. And if you don't nurture them and develop some of those relationships,
Mm.
people are quick to quit nowadays. And
Mm-hmm.
so then you look up and you're like, now I've got to replace people and start over again. It's a lot easier to nurture and build up the people that you have because
Mm-hmm.
turnover is tough.
Okay, let's dial into this. Tell me
Yes.
what your day looks like, okay? Because, I mean, if you're spending time, because a lot of managers, I can hear them in my head already, we're too busy to do this. And it's like, well, we say that about, salespeople will say that all the time too, but then they're on the Instagram for like 3 hours. And so I think it's time management is a thing. I think it's even about resetting or reevaluating your work day and what that workflow looks like and allocating time to certain things that are important and putting more emphasis on things that maybe we don't spend a lot of time. Most managers will tell me they're not a great coach. They're not a great trainer, that they don't spend consistent time with their team. And if they do, it's a burnout session. It's the old save a deal, and it's like an hour and a half meeting. And that's not training. That's a reactive situation.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're right. It almost has to be a one-on-one because you get a group of
Okay.
people in a room nowadays and you could have the greatest content and everything that you're sharing is so valid because so many people out there that have been in the business, they've got great knowledge in their heads and they know how it operates. But you get a group of folks in a room and you keep them in there for an hour and everybody's wandering. You could just see it in their eyes, and they're straining because these things are like the worst. They're
Yeah.
trying to look at their phones. And so we get them one on one. So, when the day starts, you've got your
Okay.
things you need to go through. Of course, you got your BDC appointments. You got to get involved with them and verify them. But we get each salesperson and we sit down with them one on one and we
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, let's look at this. We get into our CRM. We get into we're still old school and new school. We still use written logs too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we'll go through and we'll start talking. Hey, what happened with this customer? What happened with that customer? Let's talk about it. We'll put a plan together and then we'll sit down and we'll start making those phone calls and getting actively involved. And
Mm.
it's funny sometimes because they, as much as there's some resistance to it, when you hit that piece, right? And you say something to somebody, and all of a sudden they're like, wow, I can't believe you did that. Doesn't mean they're going to do it again the next time, but it starts to build their confidence in you and
Mm-hmm.
build their confidence in the system. So everybody, every day, gets sat down with the manager and we're doing one-on-ones with them to call our KPI customers, to call our unsold customers. And the biggest thing is too, or one of the biggest things is cultivating your already sold customers because it's
Yes.
so easy. Everybody forgets about them because relationships, right? Relationship building for some of these folks is so difficult. And it's a relational business, right?
Yeah.
Repeat customers, referrals. So
Mm-hmm.
we sit down and make those calls too. And so we try and keep them engaged with if showing them how to do it, but then having them do it while we're there. So you're
Mm-hmm.
kind of like a lifeline. If they get a little bit over their head, you can jump in and say, "Hey, I got you," and get involved in the call or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and it's nice too because the door is open,
Right.
where they already know you sat down with them, you're doing it on a reg, it's a consistent effort. And then I talk to customers on the phone and it's not going my way. I'm like, boss, you got to take a TO,
Right. Exactly.
knowing that you will.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. You're 100% correct.
Mhm. I think that relationship is strained in a lot of stores, that salespeople don't know that their manager will do calls with them, that they will get involved. And this is a really a refreshing conversation to have with you. One of the things that you keep bringing up, and I've noticed it in your store too, is that the relationship between your BDC and your sales team is so tight. I imagine it wasn't always this way. So
Right.
you have a BDC, and you mentioned they sit in your sales meeting. I like this. I like this for many reasons. They're part of the team. Now, a lot of dealerships, they is like an island, so it's a separate entity, and it's treated like a separate entity. And I think that's one of the biggest fails. They don't feel part of the team. Once that BDC agent feels part of the sales team,
Right.
they're in their meetings. They can hear what they're going through. They can have a voice and say, "Hey, we need to get a better job of, putting notes in the system after departure. We're gonna call these people back, bring them back, but you to put the notes on what you drove or what the pulse is. Is this guy angry? Why do you leave? Stuff like this." But it
Right.
gives everybody a time to talk together. And at the same time, we have incentives for salespeople all the time. And I always feel like BDC needs to know what we're trying to move out of the store, which, many things can unfold in having them attend your sales meeting. So I think that's a really great initiative. It sends a big message that it's a unit. We're a unit. We're all fighting for the same thing. So how do you have such a how did you get here? How do you maintain it? Even tell me some of the pains you experienced to be able to get to this point where they work so well together and they're on the same team. How do you do that?
We're very fortunate. My BDC, as you know, I've got two people in my BDC that we built that BDC 10 years ago, right?
Okay.
And you were a part of that. And
Yeah.
when we turned around, and we have those people that are there, so they understand what we're doing. But
Mm-hmm.
you're absolutely right. There's so much in a lot of stores. They hear from other people dissension between the business development center and the sales staff. These leads are no good. They're bringing these people in, and I can't sell them. Or
Or, we don't have the car. Why'd you bring them in? Or their
absolutely,
credit shit. Why are they here?
absolutely,
And I'm
absolutely.
always like, what are you talking about? Their job is to set appointments
That's
and flood
right,
the showroom, and you're going to sell
right,
more cars.
right,
Who cares? You want more people in the
right.
showroom. Anyway,
But I
get
love it.
excited about
But
that.
at the end of the day, what happened is we understood the two needed to be symbiotic, right?
Mm,
And so we try to put constraints in place. Like a BDC agent cannot give a deal directly to a salesperson. It's got to
okay.
funnel through the sales desk. So you can't have salespeople out there going, "Oh, well, so and so gives all of her deals to so and so, and I'm
Yep.
getting ripped off." But when all of my phone calls, all of our leads, everything funnels through the BDC. And when those guys have a customer and they set up an appointment, um, every customer gets a folder done
Oh,
prior to them arriving. And
okay.
in that folder, they'll put the CRM sheet in there, but they'll also put notes about
Mm-hmm.
what the customer's looking for, important bullet points to the customer. So when
Mm-hmm.
the customer gets to the showroom and they ask for their BDC rep, the BDC rep comes out with the folder. We have a smooth introduction. And when the salesperson sits down with the customer, we're not qualifying, we're verifying. Hey, I spoke to
Mm,
Jennifer, and she told me that you were looking for a 2025 Kia Optima, and you've got a 2017 Forte to trade in, and it's financed through Kia, and so we try and make it seamless for the customers. But my BDC and my sales staff both benefit. If it's a BDC customer, my BDC is their pay plan. It's not impacted on the sales side. My salespeople don't pay any penalty for the fact that it's a BDC customer. They're going to get paid how they get paid. And so, there's going to be challenges. A customer walking through the door can be a 450 beacon, just like someone coming in. But we preach to our salespeople, to our BDC, we don't want to pre qualify, because if we pre qualify, we're starting to exclude people
that's
before they
right.
ever get to the door and we have our shot.
Yeah.
So, every opportunity is an opportunity. And
Yes.
our BDC, you know, brings so many people in through the door that it creates a strong relationship. And the salespeople now have gotten in tune with they'll put notes in the system, but they go back to the BDC rep because the BDC reps ask them to say, "Hey, this is
What
what
happened to
happened
this
with Mr.
customer?
Smith. Yeah, this is what happened with Miss Jones." So we've created a relationship where it works for both, and it's been pretty solid.
Yeah, and I have to believe because you have a moment here, which I'm actually curious about. Um, I'll come back to that in a second, but there's a moment here where I think it unites the whole crew.
Right.
It's that the BDC is the one who ignited the relationship. They dug around, they poked around, they chased these people for who knows over how long. They finally got them to come in here. In most stores that have a BDC, it's a complete reset. And you solve that problem by having the BDC write down the deets on the situation about this customer. And you said it's not to review it, it's to verify. And
Right.
so when the salesperson sits there and says to the customer, "All right, my girl Jen, she said boom, boom, boom," at
Right.
that moment, for me, it bridges the gap and it allows the customer to feel valued and appreciated. And I find that this is a lot easier for a salesperson to be able to move forward because it's not icy. You know, that we are picking right back up where they left off. And I have to believe that the salesperson probably appreciates that the BDC did their job, part of their job,
Right.
and made their life a little bit easier. And once they understand that and see the value of the BDC, then they want to work together, you know. And then when the BDC starts bringing the people back in, the B-Back's unsold showroom, because maybe the salesperson now sees the value of what they need to assist, you know, by putting the notes in the system because we're communicating. Now it's easier for the BDC to, BDCs hate it when they're like, "What happened to this customer? Why'd they leave? You know, what did they drive? I called them. They were like not even on the same car." You know, and that requires a salesperson to put the pulse in, put, you know, what they drove, what the pain points, the hot buttons are, blah, blah, blah. And allows the BDC to continue the seamless guest experience.
You're right. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Because that's that interaction. If you don't sell the car, there still needs to be follow
Follow
up.
up.
And my BDC, they're great about follow up. So just like the information needs to flow from the BDC to sales when the customer
Mm-hmm.
arrives, then if we don't sell them, the information needs to flow back from sales to the BDC so
Mm-hmm.
they know what they're talking about when they re-engage with the customer. They're
Mm-hmm.
not starting from scratch to say, "Oh gee, what happened?" They can say, "Well, I understand that you came in, you looked at the car, you were also looking at a Honda Accord and a Toyota Camry, and how's that going?" And we have a game plan when we call them back for how we want to engage them, as opposed to just calling them back blind to being, "So hey, Jen, what happened when we were here?"
Yeah. Everyone's trying to get this figured out. I want you to know that. Everyone is trying to get this figured out.
Right.
And I imagine that it wasn't always like this for you. So,
Right.
how did you get here? I mean, something had to happen where that they respect each other. To even get the two people to respect each other and understand the roles and responsibilities and be excited to even communicate after the customer leaves is what I mean. It's very difficult in the majority of stores. I think it's a massive breakdown in the whole sales process. So how did you get there? I mean, who came up with the folders? You know, I mean, why aren't you using the CRM to do that? Go on. I want
Well,
to hear. How did you get to this point? Because it's hard for people to do this.
the car business right now, in and of itself, has become more difficult. But leadership needs to have a vision, and it needs to be an unrelenting vision, and it needs to be a communicated vision, and people need to participate in the vision.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got to have a situation where these departments come together and work cohesively, you're going to have some struggles. You're going to have, you know, people that initially don't accept it or think it's
Yes.
biased or why am I not getting. But what we've done is we do not hand leads out in advance.
Mm-hmm.
So when somebody shows up at our showroom and
Whoever
they
upped
get
them.
greeted by somebody and they say, "Hey, I'm here to see Vanessa," we're
Mm-hmm.
going to say, "Hey, come on, have a seat. Can I get you a bottle of water? Give me 1 second. I'm going to get Vanessa for you." And so whoever shook the lucky hand is the person that's going to take that up. So nobody feels like they are
Yep.
left out or it's a bias system.
Yeah.
So it's easier for people to accept. But then by the same token, when difficulties come up, right, you've got to be able to, again, the importance of having the BDC
Mm-hmm.
and the salespeople in the meetings together gives us a situation where, as we're going through these growing pains of people feeling certain ways about the leads, or people feeling, they're not getting their fair share, or whatever the case may be, you
Mm-hmm.
can address it as a group and everybody hears what the resolution is. You're not
Mm-hmm.
giving a resolution to one
No.
department this way and another department that way. We bring everybody together, address whatever the issue is, and we move forward from it. And because everybody's a participant in that, then everybody's more accepting of the resolution. But you just, whatever that vision is, when you
Mm-hmm.
put a plan together and you say, this is how I'm going to run this thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? You need to be unrelenting in that vision, because if when those problems or difficulties come, you say, well, let me change this, because let me change that. No, you have to find a way to adapt it all together. And we've been very fortunate to be able to do that.
Yeah. Well, I can sense that it's not a massive undertaking to correct this big issue that
Right.
impacts guest experience. It impacts the culture in the dealership. It impacts interactions, engagement. Even it's a vibe, especially when people are, getting along and out for each other's success, willing to bat for them, because I'm sure Vanessa would come out if they needed to pull her in, because she wants the best for the
Oh,
salesperson,
sure.
and the same thing for you. If Vanessa and your BDC needed a TO on a call, I'm sure, it means something to have a manager be able to come in and help out, so you've got a good synergy, and that also is inviting for customers. But, it doesn't seem like it's a lot of things. But it just has to be something that is an initiative that leadership is embracing and being consistent about it.
You got to put yourself out there. I mean, the BDC loves it when
Yeah.
they've got a live customer. And, nowadays, with the advent of the internet and people can find a car, well, you still get those people that call you up that want to buy a car right now and they're willing to do it over the phone.
Okay.
And when they run up to the desk going, hey, we call them hot potatoes, right?
Okay.
So when they come up to the desk and they're like, Mike, I got a hot potato. Hey, come on, let's call them right now. And they see
Okay.
you make a car deal out of it over the phone. They get all excited because now, hey, they just sold a car. And when we roll with one of those hot potatoes, it's going to go to a salesperson. All of a sudden, you say to a salesperson, hey, listen, call Mr. Smith and get all of his information, put this deal jacket together. This deal's done. What's better than that? They don't have to do much for it, and they've got a car deal. So everybody gets excited about those things. So it keeps the energy going.
Yeah, curious. Okay, when that customer comes in, does a manager greet the customer, or is it just your BDC rep that comes out and says hello?
Well, we always do early intervention. You've got
Oh,
to
you
do
do.
early management intervention, and probably not right in that moment, but
Okay.
quickly. You need to go down, introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Mike. I'm one of the managers here. Just want to let you know that we're here for you. John's going to take great care of you. But as we roll through this thing, I'm going to be right with you. So I want to introduce myself and welcome you to the dealership. Just that little touch, they know who you are, and
Yeah.
now you're just not that guy sitting up in a tower anymore,
Agreed.
right? And so when
Yeah.
you have to go back in, it's a lot easier of a transition. So they greet the salesperson, the BDC rep will go out and greet them, but early management intervention is huge, and you're absolutely right.
Yeah, no, I'm a super big fan, advocate of this approach. And a lot of times I say, wouldn't it be extra, extra if you read the notes on that appointment? You knew it was a BDC, but don't you have to check this don't you have to check them showed? Like, I'm sure it's not the salesperson checking them showed. And so now you know it's a BDC appointment. Now you see some of the notes. And if you're not coming in at that moment,
Right.
coming out later, dropping some like, hey, we know you. Oh, you're the one in the 17 Optima, right? Yeah, okay.
Right.
We got our appraiser
Exactly.
here, but that just makes it even more powerful. At a seamless guest
Oh yeah.
experience, making it But I'm wondering who checks them in, and also, who does a manager actually read those notes to use it in their welcome?
Yeah, we know all of our appointments that are set for the day are all verified by a manager.
Oh,
Okay.
like you mean like an appointment confirmation?
Yes,
Okay,
every
so they're
morning.
getting a call. Okay,
Yep. So
got
so
it.
we're looking at it, and at the end of the day, one of two things is going to happen, right? Either A, we're going to jump into the CRM and take a look at the notes, or B, when we walk down, right? My BDC management knows never run out of folders, right?
Mm,
If I walk down to that desk, there needs to be a folder on that desk, and I can upload the folder, take a look at it, and
okay.
look at the notes myself while I'm talking to the customer. But we always want to try and make it impactful. As a matter of fact, we have a VIP section at our dealership. So if
Okay.
somebody's coming in and they're looking for a specific car, they will come to a manager in advance, okay? And we have little VIP hang tags with the customer's name on it, and we've got spots with little street signs, that say VIP customer. And so we'll pull the car up into the VIP section, and when the customer gets there, they get that folder from a manager because they're coming in right. They are already down in the funnel. They know what car they want to buy. They're coming in with a purpose, and so we
Yeah.
want to make it as seamless as possible.
Okay. Wow, you've given us a lot here, and it just sounds picture perfect. This is actually why I wanted you to come on, because not a lot of people could get any of this stuff right. And I think the more I talk to you, the more we could see the cohesiveness of your process, and even just the mindfulness of putting a tag on a car with the customer's name. That just screams we value and appreciate people. We welcome you. These for me are all gross boosters. I also feel like it'd be difficult for a customer to go elsewhere and get treated the same way. It truly is a VIP experience when you already know they're coming. They got a confirmation call from the manager. They're getting welcomed by the manager. They're getting welcomed by the BDC rep. I mean, geez, this customer is like getting flooded with love and affection and attention. Who
Right?
doesn't like that?
But you hit the key. When you said gross booster, we call it quality, right?
Okay.
We call it quality, and the more quality you offer, the higher the gross is going to be, which benefit for everybody. So I didn't bring it up, you did, but you're absolutely on the money about that. When you look at where our gross profit sits in our store,
Mm.
it's above the bar, and that's
Woo!
probably one of the reasons why.
Definitely. I can sense it. I can see it. And not only that, but I imagine your closing ratios are higher as well. And I bet you your B back ratios are pretty high as well. Because once they try to, go somewhere else, they just aren't going to get treated this way. It really, truly is a red carpet feel. We're all fighting for loyalty. We're all fighting to make things more efficient and save time. And I think you're just doing a great job of really making this feel all the feels for car buyers. And not only that, but you're really focused on showing the respect and attention to every team member's success, which are things that have fallen by the wayside in a lot of stores. I love the energy from you because you're a manager that gets it. You're somebody that is invested in the team's success, the operational success, and just the details of bridging the gap between the BDC and sales tells everybody that you understand and see and place the highest importance on collaboration. You got to bring everybody together. It's not separate. We want the same thing.
Oh no, you're right.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights, your processes, just really your recommendations for other stores on how to become a top performer.
Well, it was my pleasure. I appreciate you having me. I enjoyed the chat, and thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Okay.
If you like these episodes and my sales game techniques, you should snatch up our latest dealer education program I'm hosting. It's called Jen's Remote Classes, and it's a 1-hour, once-a-week class with me alongside other dealerships, all pursuing the same end game to achieve top 10% status in your dealership. For more info, hit me up. All my contact info's in the show notes. I want to hear from you. And follow Dealer Talk with Jen Suzuki right now to get notified when episodes like this one drop. This is Jen on the podcast Dealer Talk with Jen Suzuki. See ya!